The day Maya Reed touched a fencing foil for the first time, three truths collided. She had a natural gift for quick reflexes that few could match. But the sport she had discovered was not made for kids like her, an inner-city girl from a family that could barely make ends meet. And as her skill grew, she realized that impossible dreams often attracted dangerous enemies. At Jefferson High, Maya's presence was barely acknowledged as she moved through the hallways, blending into the shadows. While her peers received varsity jackets and recognition for their athletic feats, she remained invisible, a bystander in the bustling world of high school sports. No one cared about the quiet girl in the back row of history class, but in the solitude of her backyard, something inside Maya transformed. By the light of the moon, she practiced the movements of fencing, lunge, parry, thrust, each motion meticulously precise, a defiant act in the face of a sport that had historically excluded people like her. The more she practiced, the more she felt the weight of history behind each strike. Maya had no coach, no formal training. She had scavenged old fencing videos from a thrift store and used a broken broom handle as a substitute for a foil. Her equipment was pieced together from secondhand stores and old scraps of fabric. But in her mind, it didn't matter. Every night, as she slashed the air with her makeshift weapon, she imagined herself on a real strip, competing with the best. One afternoon, a poster caught her eye as she passed by the school bulletin board. The Westbrook Preparatory School, an elite institution across town, was hosting a public fencing demonstration. The flyer was simple, but the words jumped out at her. Fencing for all, free demonstration. She didn't know why she was drawn to it. Maybe it was because of the challenge, or maybe it was because she wanted to prove to herself that she could hold her own in a world that seemed so foreign to her. Maya tucked the flyer into her pocket, making a silent promise to attend. That afternoon, she slipped out of school unnoticed, a skill she had honed over the years. The Westbrook gym was massive, far bigger than anything she had ever seen in her public school. The gleaming white floors reflected the pristine environment, an almost alien world compared to the cracked sidewalks and dilapidated streets of her neighborhood. Maya found a seat at the back of the bleachers, observing the demonstration. It was breathtaking, so precise, so controlled. The fencers moved like dancers, their foils flashing in the air as they executed each move with surgical precision. It was beautiful. It was everything Maya had dreamed of. But as the demonstration ended and the crowd began to disperse, she noticed a tall figure with platinum blonde hair standing near the fencing coaches, laughing loudly with his friends. His name was Carter Langley, and his family was well known at Westbrook. His father was a major donor to the school, and his reputation in the fencing world was as prestigious as his family's wealth. Carter noticed Maya sitting in the back. His eyes roamed over her from head to toe, dismissing her almost immediately. With a sneer, he turned to his friends, muttering something that made them laugh. It wasn't loud enough for her to hear, but the look on his face said it all. She didn't belong here. As Maya stood to leave, a tall coach in a Westbrook blazer approached her. His eyes skimmed over her worn-out sneakers and the faded sweatshirt she wore. He studied her for a moment, then shook his head. "We have a program here," he said, his voice flat, "but it's selective. You don't look like you belong in a place like this. Maybe try basketball." Maya's chest tightened. She stood frozen for a moment, her heart pounding in her ears. But she didn't say anything. She didn't fight back. She simply nodded and left, walking out of the building and into the cold air of the evening. The humiliation stung, but it wasn't the first time. It wasn't the first time someone had looked at her like she was invisible, or worse, out of place. She had learned to live with it. But as she walked down the streets of Westbrook, she passed a dumpster behind the gym, where old equipment was being tossed away. Her eyes flicked to a discarded foil. The blade bent, the handle cracked. Without a second thought, Maya reached into the dumpster, pulled it out, and tucked it under her jacket. Later that night, Maya cleaned the foil with rubbing alcohol and electrical tape. She couldn't afford a real foil, but this one would do. Holding it in her hands, she could already feel the weight of her future, the weight of the person she was about to become. The next day after school, Maya couldn't stop thinking about the foil. She knew she was doing something out of the ordinary, something no one in her neighborhood would understand, but it felt like destiny. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, she found herself in her backyard again, the foil gripped firmly in her hand. The air was crisp with the early autumn chill, but Maya's focus was absolute. Her movements were shaky at first, the unbalanced handle of the makeshift foil throwing her off. But with each pass, she grew more confident. She practiced lunges, footwork, and even the parry. The world outside seemed to disappear. There were no broken fences, no rusted cars, no harsh words from the people who didn't believe in her. For the first time in her life, Maya felt like she belonged somewhere, even if it was just with the sound of her footsteps and the foil cutting through the air. She wasn't completely alone in her pursuit. Across the street, her neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, watched from her window every evening. Mrs. Jenkins was a retired military nurse with a love for old-school sports like boxing and fencing. She had seen Maya practicing countless times, and although she never spoke to her directly, Maya could always feel her eyes on her, a quiet presence of someone who understood, even if she said nothing. One evening, after a particularly grueling practice, Maya found herself facing the backyard fence, breathing heavily, sweat trickling down her brow. She was about to pack up for the night when she heard a voice behind her. "That's not bad for a beginner." Maya whipped around startled, her heart leaping into her throat. Standing there was Mr. Holloway, the old man who lived 2 houses down. He was thin and hunched over slightly, his skin darkened by age and time in the sun, but his eyes were sharp, watching her like a hawk. "You know how to fence?" Maya asked, cautiously lowering the foil. Mr. Holloway smiled slightly, his mouth curling into a tight line. "I was in the military," he said, his voice gravelly but kind. "Fenced for years with the Army. You're not holding the blade right, though." Maya was speechless. This was the last person she expected to find, especially in her backyard, at that hour. But there was something about the way he spoke, so direct, but not dismissive, that made her want to listen. "Mind if I show you something?" he asked, stepping forward. "I'll teach you what I know, if you want to learn." Maya hesitated. "I don't know. I mean, you're a military guy, right? What would you want to teach me?" Mr. Holloway raised an eyebrow, his gaze lingering on her for a moment before he gave a small chuckle. "Fencing isn't just about fighting with swords. It's about discipline, focus, and timing. More than any of that, it's about proving people wrong, especially when they think you don't belong." Her heart skipped. It was like he understood her. "Yeah," she said quietly, her voice a little shaky. "I'm used to that." Mr. Holloway's expression softened. "I've seen it before. The people who fight the hardest are the ones who know what it feels like to be pushed to the margins." He paused and gave her a searching look. "What do you say? Want to learn the right way to hold that foil?" Maya nodded, too excited to speak. Mr. Holloway handed her a worn leather-bound book and a fencing mask that looked old but still serviceable. "Come by tomorrow after school," he said. "We'll start with the basics." The next afternoon, Maya was back in Mr. Holloway's backyard. It wasn't much, just a patch of grass and a few wooden posts he had set up to mark a practice strip. But it felt like a gymnasium to Maya. The whole world seemed to fade away as she listened to Mr. Holloway's instructions. He corrected her footwork, her stance, and even the way she gripped the foil. With each correction, she felt herself getting stronger, more confident. "Good," Mr. Holloway said after an hour. "Now let's do it again, a little faster this time." It felt like time was standing still, but Maya was in motion, her body responding to the rhythm of fencing. She was so focused that when she finished, she was breathing heavily, her body covered in sweat. "You've got some talent," Mr. Holloway said, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "But there's a lot more to learn. Keep coming back." And Maya did. Every day after school, she would practice with Mr. Holloway, the only person who seemed to believe in her. Each time, she felt more powerful, more capable. She practiced for hours even after her muscles began to ache. It wasn't just the technique that mattered, it was the mental toughness, the resilience that Maya needed to forge. Her dreams began to take shape. The impossible didn't feel so far away, but she knew deep down that there would be obstacles. It wasn't just her lack of equipment or the snide comments from people who didn't understand fencing. It was something bigger. She could already feel it. the weight of the world trying to hold her back. One afternoon, as Maya walked home after practice, she saw a flyer for the upcoming regional fencing tournament. It was an official event, one she knew she couldn't afford to enter. There were entry fees, rules, and professional equipment requirements she didn't have. Her heart sank, but then something sparked within her. The thought of those wealthy kids like Carter Langley, who had everything handed to them, walking around with their shiny uniforms, made her angry. She had the talent. She had the determination. She didn't need their money or their pedigree. Maya kept the flyer tucked in her pocket. She wasn't sure how she was going to make it work, but one thing was certain: she wasn't going to let anything stop her. The days began to blur for Maya as she settled into her new routine. Every afternoon, she would race through her homework, eager to get back to Mr. Holloway's yard. After school, while other kids played basketball or hung out at the mall, Maya was out there with the foil, practicing lunges, footwork, and timing until her legs screamed in protest. Mr. Holloway was relentless but patient. He would come out at 4 p.m., sharp, his old military boots hitting the pavement with a slow, deliberate rhythm. He would always remind her of the basics, the things that others overlooked or dismissed, the positions, the strategy, the mind games that made fencing a mental battle as much as a physical one. And through it all, he told her to ignore what others thought. The first step to being great, he'd say, is believing you already are. But as Maya honed her skills, her sense of isolation deepened. She had learned not to care about what others said, but the cold reality of being an outsider still haunted her. One day, she overheard a conversation between some of the kids from school while waiting for the bus. They were talking about the upcoming tournament, laughing at the idea of someone like Maya showing up. "She's probably just doing it for the attention," one of the girls snickered. "You know, the whole I can do anything thing. Like she really thinks she's a fencer." Maya clenched her jaw, her hands balling into fists. She wanted to turn around and confront them, but she didn't. She simply walked away, feeling the weight of their words pressing against her chest. No one had ever really believed in her before, and it seemed like no one was about to start now. The only person who didn't judge her was Mr. Holloway. He never treated her like an outsider, never looked at her any differently because of the color of her skin or her lack of privilege. He just treated her like a student, a fighter, and that was something Maya cherished more than anything. But the real test was coming, the regional fencing tournament, the one with the entry fees, the sponsorships, and the professional fencers. She hadn't told her mother yet, not wanting to burden her with the added stress. Maya could already feel the weight of the world pressing against her chest. How was she supposed to afford it? Where would she get the equipment? She didn't have the money to enter, and she certainly didn't have the proper gear, but she couldn't let that stop her. The night before the tournament, Maya stayed up late, working through her movements in front of the small mirror in her room. The foil, still cracked and patched with electrical tape, was heavy in her hands. She could hear the voices of her classmates, their laughter echoing in her mind, trying to break her focus. "You're not good enough," they whispered. "This isn't for people like you." But Maya ignored them. She had to. She thought of the first time she picked up the foil, how it had felt like an impossible dream. And now she was so close. She couldn't afford to back down now. By the time her alarm rang early the next morning, she was already awake, dressed in her old gym clothes, the ones she always wore to practice. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror, adjusting the homemade fencing mask that Mr. Holloway had found for her. It was far from perfect, but it was hers, and she wasn't going to let anyone tell her that wasn't enough. Her mom was still asleep when she left the house. Maya didn't want to worry her about the tournament or the things that were still uncertain. The tournament itself felt like an impossible mountain, but she wasn't afraid of climbing it, not anymore. As she approached the venue, her heart pounded in her chest. Westbrook Preparatory Academy loomed ahead of her, a gleaming white building with manicured lawns and a perfect, pristine facade. The school was everything Maya wasn't, a place for the rich, for kids who had all the resources, all the connections. Kids like Preston Langley, the son of a prominent school board member who had everything handed to him on a silver platter. She could already feel the weight of his judgment hanging over her. The idea of being there with him in the same arena was enough to make her stomach churn. But this wasn't about him. This was about her. "Focus," Maya whispered to herself. shaking off the nerves. "This is your moment. Just fight." The moment she stepped into the registration area, Maya felt the looks of disbelief. A few people glanced her way, mostly the coaches, the other fencers who were preparing for the tournament. They didn't know her. They didn't know where she had come from or how hard she had fought to even be there. She stood quietly in line, clutching her entry form tightly. But before she could make it to the check-in table, someone tapped her on the shoulder. Maya turned around to find Preston Langley standing behind her, a smug look on his face. He was dressed in a pristine white uniform, the kind of equipment that made Maya feel even more out of place. "So, the backyard fencer thinks she's here to compete, huh?" Preston sneered. "You really think you're ready for this?" Maya felt her heart race. She opened her mouth to say something, but Mr. Holloway's voice echoed in her mind. "Focus. Don't let them distract you." With a deep breath, Maya turned to face Preston. "I belong here as much as you do," she said, her voice steady. "And I'll prove it." She didn't wait for his response. Without looking back, Maya moved past him and headed toward the practice area, the nerves melting away into pure determination. She was going to show him, and everyone else, that no one could define her or her place in the world. The tournament was about to begin, and Maya Reed was ready to fight. Maya stepped onto the polished floor of the tournament arena, her heart thudding in her chest. The sound of the other competitors' feet shuffling across the court, the murmur of coaches and spectators, felt like a distant echo in her ears. She could see Preston, still in his pristine white uniform, laughing with his teammates, his confidence oozing from every word. His presence irritated her, but at the same time, it made her more determined than ever to prove herself. She looked down at her own gear, the second-hand shoes, the homemade mask, and the foil that had once been discarded, now a symbol of her persistence. The heavy weight of it in her hands no longer felt foreign. It was an extension of herself, battered, imperfect, but capable of far more than anyone gave her credit for. As she warmed up, Maya couldn't shake the whispers of doubt that tried to creep into her mind. "You don't belong here. You'll never be as good as them." They came from everywhere, from the kids at school, from the polished fencers in the gym, and from the one person who made her doubt the most, herself. She remembered the first time she'd stepped into a real fencing gym, all those months ago. The stares, the dismissive chuckles, the way they didn't take her seriously because she wasn't like them. "I'm different," Maya thought bitterly, "but that doesn't mean I'm less." Just as she was finishing her stretches, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Maya turned to find Mr. Holloway standing behind her, his presence steady and reassuring, despite his frailty. His cane rested lightly in his hand, and his eyes, though tired, were filled with warmth. He gave her a small, encouraging nod. "You ready for this, Maya?" he asked, his gravelly voice soft but sure. "I'm ready," she said, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she had to be. There was no turning back now. "I've been practicing everything you taught me." Mr. Holloway smiled, his eyes crinkling at the edges. "Good. But remember, it's not just about technique. It's about heart. You know the moves, but don't forget to trust your instincts. Fencing isn't just what's in the books. It's about how you read the person in front of you." Maya nodded, her hands shaking slightly as she adjusted her mask. "I won't let them get to me." "Don't let them get to you, or you'll lose more than just the match," Mr. Holloway said with a knowing look. "Focus. Block them out." Before she could respond, a voice echoed across the gym, calling her name. "Maya Reed?" Maya turned to see the tournament official waving her over. She walked to the registration desk, where she was handed her match number. "You'll be on strip 5, the official said curtly, giving her a once-over. "Be ready in 5 minutes." The air around her thickened as she made her way to the strip. The crowd was small but growing, a handful of curious spectators mixed with parents, coaches, and other competitors. Maya could see Preston, who was standing near the other end of the hall, his eyes focused on her, a smirk still playing at his lips. "He's watching," Maya muttered to herself, adjusting her mask. As she stepped onto the strip, the sound of her shoes on the floor seemed deafening. The floor was slick, the lights above casting sharp shadows that made everything feel surreal. Her first opponent was a tall girl with jet black hair, wearing a sleek blue uniform. Maya sized her up, trying to read her stance, her movements. The girl didn't seem particularly aggressive, but Maya knew looks could be deceiving. The referee called them to attention, and the familiar voice echoed, "On guard." Maya saluted, her foil held firmly in her gloved hand, and then settled into position. She could feel the sweat forming at the back of her neck, but she pushed it aside. This wasn't about her opponent, it was about her. She had trained for this. She had earned this. "Ready, fence!" The sound of the starting command was like the pop of a firecracker in her mind. Time slowed as she took the first step forward, her footwork precise but slightly off balance. Her opponent immediately lunged at her with a quick strike. Maya instinctively parried, but the blow caught her off guard, knocking her foil aside. "Focus," she whispered to herself, settling into the rhythm. She remembered what Mr. Holloway had told her. "Don't fight their fight. Fight yours." The girl lunged again, and this time Maya anticipated the move. Stepping aside just in time to avoid the tip of the foil, she countered with a quick thrust, her movements sharp and calculated. The referee called the point in her favor. 1-0. Maya's heart raced. "I can do this." Her opponent's confidence seemed to falter after that, and Maya used it to her advantage. The next few exchanges were a blur of calculated moves, parries, and ripostes. With each point she earned, Maya's confidence grew. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. As the match progressed, Maya found herself falling into the flow of it, like a dance she had learned long ago. The movements were fluid, almost second nature now. She felt a strange sense of calm, as if all the noise, all the judgment, had faded into the background. With one final calculated strike, Maya disarmed her opponent, sending the foil flying across the strip. The referee's whistle blew, signaling the end of the match. The score flashed on the screen, 5-1. Maya had won. She stood there for a moment, her breath heavy in her chest, unsure if she'd actually heard the whistle or if she was dreaming. The sound of the crowd cheering felt like it came from another world. For the first time since she had arrived, Maya smiled. Maya's victory in the first round had ignited a quiet storm within her. As she returned to the side of the gym, Mr. Holloway's approving gaze met hers. His usual gruffness had softened, replaced by something resembling pride. Maya could feel the eyes of the crowd lingering on her, but they no longer bothered her. In that moment, she knew she had done more than just win a match. She had made a statement. "See? Told you," Mr. Holloway whispered as he patted her shoulder. Maya smiled back, but her focus remained sharp. She wasn't done yet, one match at a time. Her next opponent was different. Maya could see the difference in his stance before the match even began. He was a seasoned fencer, someone who had clearly been on the competitive circuit for years. His posture was precise, each movement deliberate, like a well-oiled machine, a stark contrast to the nerves she had seen in many of her past opponents. The referee called the match to start, and as Maya saluted, she reminded herself again, "Trust your instincts." "Ready, fence." The moment the word fence rang in her ears, the world narrowed to just the man in front of her, the foil in her hand, and the space between them. This wasn't just about the physical movements anymore. Maya had learned that fencing was a battle of wills just as much as it was about speed and technique. Her opponent wasted no time. He launched into a series of aggressive strikes, his blade a blur in the air. Maya parried, but his speed was enough to push her back. For a moment, she felt the familiar surge of doubt creep in. Was she out of her depth? Could she really go all the way? Her own voice in her head snapped her back into focus. "Don't let him make you feel small." With a sharp intake of breath, Maya stepped back and adjusted her stance. Her feet shuffled into position, and she observed him carefully. She wasn't as fast as him, but she was different. She could be unpredictable. The strength she'd always carried with her, the strength that had pushed her this far, was what would make the difference now. A few more strikes flew between them, each one a test of their reflexes and strategies. Maya began to notice the rhythm of her opponent. He attacked aggressively, but there was a pattern to his movements. He would thrust, pull back, and then launch into another series of strikes. She waited for the right moment, watching, listening, feeling the beat of the match. Then it came. He attacked again, and Maya stepped to the side, letting his blade pass just inches from her face. Without thinking, she executed the sequence Mr. Holloway had drilled into her for weeks, the one she had perfected in the alley behind her house, the one that felt like home to her. Her foil flew forward, striking his chest with pinpoint precision. "Touché," the referee called, and the score flashed in her favor. 1 point. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she couldn't celebrate yet. The match was far from over. They continued, each move building the tension, both of them refusing to give an inch. The man was good, and each strike he landed made her fight harder. And then it happened. He made a mistake, a misstep, an overextended lunge. Maya seized the opportunity, sidestepping him and landing a precise riposte that struck his target. 2 points. A small spark of pride flared inside her, but she quickly buried it. This wasn't a time for distractions. This wasn't over yet. The final point came down to the smallest of margins. The man, frustrated by his earlier mistakes, pushed forward with desperation. But Maya was calm now. She wasn't reacting out of instinct anymore. She was anticipating his every move. She saw it, the flicker of hesitation in his eyes as he prepared his next attack. That's it. She darted forward faster than she had ever moved before, and with a quick flick of her wrist, her foil touched his chest before he could even react. The referee blew the whistle, and the crowd erupted in applause. Maya had done it. She had defeated him, this well-trained, seasoned fencer. The score flashed on the screen, 5-3. Maya stood still for a moment, her heart racing, her breath shallow. She removed her mask slowly, the weight of the moment settling on her. Her opponent shook his head, a look of reluctant admiration in his eyes. "That was impressive," he said, extending his hand. "You've got some real talent." "Thanks," Maya replied, shaking his hand firmly, her voice steady. "You're good too." But she wasn't thinking about him anymore. She was thinking about the match that was still to come, the final. As Maya returned to the side of the gym, Tina caught her eye and gave her a thumbs up. The familiar sense of camaraderie between them was comforting, but there was still a fire inside Maya that hadn't burned out yet. This wasn't just about winning, it was about something bigger. Mr. Holloway approached her, his eyes gleaming with pride. "That was the fight you were waiting for. You've got what it takes to finish this." "I won't let you down," Maya said, her voice resolute. The final was upon her, and the road ahead was clear. The crowd had noticed her. The world was beginning to see her for what she was, not just a competitor, but a force to be reckoned with. As she adjusted her mask, preparing for the last challenge, Maya reminded herself, "This fight is mine.